Good morning, I am Hemant Mehta. In today's session, we are going to discuss about the JSP exception handling. When you are writing a JSP code, a programmer may leave a coding errors which can occur at any part of the code, and you can have the following types of errors in your JSP code. Number one, that is called a checked exception. A checked exception is an exception that is typically a user error or a problem that cannot be foreseen by the programmer. For example, if a file is to be opened but the file cannot be found, an exception occurs, like a file not found exception. This exception cannot be simply ignored at the time of the compilation. Second, that is called a runtime exception. A runtime exception is an exception that occurs that probably could have been avoided by the programmer. As opposed to checked exception, a runtime exception are ignored at the time of the compilation. Third, that is called the errors. These are not the exception at all, but problems that arise beyond the control of the user or the programmer. Errors are typically ignored in your code because you can rarely do anything about the errors. For example, if stack overflow occurs, an error will arise. They are also ignored at the time of the compilation. So to handle this kind of exceptions and the errors, we are having exception handling methods. The exception object is an instance of the subclass of throwable. That is a java.lang.null pointer exception, right? So we are having two attributes, error page and the iserror page. Let's see the methods first of all. We are having one method that's called get message. The return type is string. It returns a detailed message about the exception that occurred. This message is initialized in the throwable constructor. The second is a get cause. The return type is throwable. Returns the cause of the exception as represented by the throwable object. Third is a toString method. Returns the name of the class concatenated with the result of the get message. Second is a print stack trace method. It prints result of the string to string along with the stack trace to the system.error, the error output stream. The next method is a get stack trace. It will return the stack trace element type of array. Returns an array containing each element on the stack trace. The element at index 0 represents the top of the stack, and the last element in the array represent the method at the bottom of the call stack. And the last is a fill in stack trace that fills the stack trace of the throwable object with the current stack trace, adding to any previous information in the stack trace. So basically these are the methods are used. Majorly we are using a print stack trace method to get the stack of the errors which are occurred in line. So JSP give you an option to specify the error page for each JSP. Whenever the page throws an exception, the JSP container automatically invokes the error page. Let me show you one example. We have already discussed two attributes of the page directive, namely error page equal to something and is error page equal to true or false. We are going to take the reference of the same. If you are not remembering this concept, please do refer the JSP directives video. Now let's say we are having a first file main.jsp. Following is an example to specify the error page in the main.jsp. To set up an error page, we can use a page directive, that is a %@page, error page equal to some file name. Let's say show error.jsp. So whenever any exception has been thrown in the main.jsp file, it is going to call show error.jsp file. That is the meaning of error page equal to some file name. Now I'm having one second file, namely show error.jsp. Now you would have to write one error handling JSP page. Let's say show error.jsp. Notice that the error handling page includes the page directive. So show error.jsp file has to authenticate itself that I am the only JSP file which will address the exception occurred in the main.jsp. So I'm just going to write down %page is error page equals true. This directive causes the JSP compiler to generate the exception instance variable. So in other words, you can say JSP compiler, JSP container will give you one implicit object, namely exception. That is one of the implicit objects. Likewise, you can deal with the JSP exception handling. Thank you.